So hopefully everyone can see my screen and hear me. I am Sanjay Srivastava. I'm the founder and CEO of Vocarium. And with me, we have David Lin and Ophelia Yu and Frank Roback. And so the agenda right now is that I'm going to spend 10 to 15 minutes just giving you an overview of Vocarium. This is for people who don't know about Vocarium at all. So we will go through our entire product portfolio and then focus on Jupyter demo for about 30 minutes. And then we'll open it for Q&A. But at any point, please go ahead and type your questions in the chat, or I guess in the Q&A section, and then hopefully someone will respond to you as you have questions. So just a little bit about Vocarium. We like to think that we are the largest virtual lab provider in the industry, the biggest. So at any given point of time, we have more than 1 million learners actively engaged on one of our labs in a course which is using one of our labs. We have a broadest category of labs. So there are other lab providers which might maybe provide programming labs or maybe a virtual machine, but we have a large category of labs that we'll discuss that. These labs were designed for education in mind. So they have a built-in collaboration capability. It comes with rich assessment suite, which is consistent across all of our labs. And the last big thing that we have been working on is like single or multi-tenant solutions. So for sometimes you might want a single tenant solution because maybe you have some proprietary software, proprietary data. So we can deliver both sort of infrastructure for you. Deploying Vocarium. So Vocarium labs are deployed in lots of different contexts. So for example, there are MOOCs. So we have quite a bit of MOOCs, a lot of them on edX, some on Coursera, which deploy our labs. Performance-based exams became a big deal, especially last year with the COVID, so everything being virtual. Training boot camps and hackathons. So typically what we mean by that, maybe you will have a 2 or 3 day or a week session where you might do some sort of corporate training, or there might be a boot camp. Or the boot camp especially, or one of these. So somewhat of a challenging scenario about this is that maybe there's a live instructor, and then maybe there are dozens or hundreds of learners which are actually following along, creating a lab. For research, syndication, virtual campus labs. So that you can see that our vision here was we want to make sure that the labs are where hands-on experience is there for the user wherever they might need in an education context. So what do you mean by a lab? So these labs are fully managed workspaces. So it comes with tools and packages installed. We worry about provisioning the resource and scaling them down or terminating them. We worry about guardrails. This can be a really important aspect for sort of expensive resources or resources which can run away in cost, like maybe cloud computing, or maybe you're doing some sort of a HPC workload. Work area is persistent. To all of the labs, we make sure that when the learner, they are not meant to be single sessions. So when the learner comes back, that they start where they left off. Deliver data. So you can, as an educator, you can deliver large amount of data because that's becoming bigger and bigger issue these days. You want to make sure that the infrastructure can handle you delivering hundreds of megabytes or even tens of gigabytes, in some case half a terabyte of data. That's the largest we have seen to the learners. And we worry about things like identity or roles. Our infrastructure does have for roles like admins and teachers and learners and graders. And over the summer, we launched the whole concept of custom roles because we're getting a lot of requests for maybe, let's say, an undergrad TA, that was one specific role, or maybe someone is an author role, which is different from a grader role. So we ended up actually creating a concept of a custom role. And by identity, we mean, there are different ways you can authenticate the user into a platform through LTI, through SAML, through our own API, or through our own authentication process. We are there. We are integrated in a lot of different learning platforms. For example, Coursera, edX, Emeritus, Simply Learn, Udemy, Udacity. So this is another which has last couple of years, as said, the edtech industry has evolved to deliver, to have this large scale platform which deliver learning to either consumers or corporate learners. So we are being used to deliver labs for all these platforms. We have a large set of universities which are using us. So there are, I think worldwide, there are about 1,000 universities. So let's go through just really quickly enumerating some of the labs that we have. One of the very popular ones, as you can imagine, is data science lab. And when we mean data science, typically it means that these are Jupyter Notebook, which we'll discuss in a lot more detail, and we'll show you how it works, or R Studio labs. Programming labs, so a broad range of languages are being learned on Vocarium. So there is a usual Python, C++, Java, Scala, or Go, maybe HTML, CSS, PHP, Node.js. And learners are learning those languages, not only broad set of languages, but also using large set of IDEs. And this is, again, something which is very unique about Vocarium, that we make sure that your learners can learn, use the right tool to not only for learning, but something they can carry into their, professional environment, because you don't want to, ideally you want to teach them in an environment they will be using later on, which occasionally use things like Jenkins or Git, and lots of different tools. Windows desktop, that's our virtualization solution. That's our VDI solution for Windows. We deliver it using a desktop solution from Amazon calling DCV. Big data essentially here means that we have a managed solution for running Hadoop. So the students can say use a pseudo cluster to debug their code, and then they can submit it on a large cluster and get the results back later on. Machine learning, and by machine learning specifically, what we essentially means that you can provide not only all the ML framework, but you can deliver GPUs. Cybersecurity, as you can imagine, is becoming a bigger and bigger deal. So, for example, we can provide a cyber range with maybe 4 or 5 machines. They could be a Windows machine, they could be Kali Linux, they can be sort of Ubuntu servers, and lots of different tools. So, for example, Kali comes with different tools. So there are compromised open source applications like WebGoat, or so we have a broad range of cybersecurity solutions where every learner can get their own cyber range. AWS, this is one of our largest labs out there where the users can learn cloud computing or use cloud computing. So essentially what it means is that you can give to learners, let's say users, so you can say you get a $50 or $10 worth of AWS credential. They don't need to enter the credit card. They can just go directly in and start, get a console access or a CLI access. But the big deal is that you have to make sure that the cost does not run away. So we provide a lot of tools for that. For example, you can control them with policies, SCPs. You can put budget constraints, time constraints. So lots of ways to make sure that the cost stays under control. So this is, out of 1 million plus, as I was saying, more than 500,000 are actually learning cloud computing on our labs. Azure Labs is something which we launched about little less than a year ago. So it's similar to AWS. So the learners can get access to an Azure credential where they can, once again, managed environment, And once again, I want to emphasize the biggest thing about management, making sure the cost is stays under control. Database, so there are some databases that we natively support on our platforms, like MySQL, Postgres, Neo4j, and DynamoDB. Robotics, by robotics we mean here is that we do have a ROS deployment. So Columbia, for example, has an edX class which has been running for a few years, where there thousands of learners have gone in there and learned robotics on ROS. So Kubernetes and Docker here are similar. It's an administration. Often people are teaching Kubernetes Docker administration, and the way we deliver it is that we deliver maybe three different nodes, and they're all networked. So they maybe they're the one master and a couple of worker nodes. Full stack. So we typically deliver through our container, and game engine. So Unity and Unreal Engine development environments. So once again, there are lots of different IDEs like IntelliJ, VS Code, Cloud9, Jupyter, RStudio, Eclipse, Thea, Thani, and there are a lot. This is just a partial list of IDEs that learners are using on our environment. Assessment, as I said earlier on, this platform was designed for education. So there are lots of different assessment options, and hopefully in the demo portion, you'll get a little bit sense of it. So there are auto grading and manual grading. There's a built-in plagiarism detection. You can provide inline comment, peer reviews. So this is some of the educators really like the fact that the peers can not only see each other's submissions, but also they can execute on it before they provide comments. Leaderboard, this is a little bit of a gamification features on the platform. So it's used for especially for machine learning classes, where you'll ask someone to build a model, and then you'll have a data set which is hidden from the user. And then based on the performance against the data set, you'll place the learner in a leaderboard. There are some case studies you can see from Cornell on our website. It's actually pretty interesting behavior it leads to. You can, something which we added more recently, that you can even integrate multiple choice assessment along with the lab. So some labs, it's kind of hard to do auto grading, for example. So you can ask the learner to go work on something and then answer some questions about it. Exams, that was, as I was saying earlier on, became a big deal last year. So with lots of features specifically for supporting exams. So you can do things like, you can say, okay, you have this 24-hour period, you can do exams with 3 hours. And you can protect it different ways through IP address, passcode. You can also, there are some integration done with proctoring, with the proctoring companies provided, especially with PSI. These labs are meant to be integrated into an LMS. So we have spent a lot of energy making sure you can integrate it several ways. For learning management system, typically it happens through LTI. We support both LTI 1.1 and 1.3, and then we have our own custom APIs. And in some cases, like a skill jar, for example, we have done some custom integration when LTI was not available. Cloud computing, I think in the interest of time, I would not go through it, but I think I've already sort of hopefully gave you an idea about how cloud computing is delivered. But this is something that's getting more and more exciting for us, because initially these were being used to deploy just cloud computing courses, but now some of our educators are saying, I would like to deliver some cloud credentials to the learners so that they can maybe use it for whatever else they're learning, because the infrastructure might not be, say, GPU or Hadoop cluster might not be available on their on-prem data center. So I think this is a little bit about underlying technology, because we deliver a broad set of labs. So there is different virtualization sort of technology used to deliver it. Some of them, like Programming Lab, Jupyter, RStudio, and Full Stack, they're developed using our sort of managed application. These are fully managed application by Vocarium, where we will manage it all the tools and packages. Cloud Labs, we talked about it. You can deliver a custom network of Docker containers. For example, if you want to bring your own image, same thing about virtual machines. And we can deliver some managed batch scheduler for HPC workloads. So this is a single and multi-tenant, multi-region. So over the last year, it became pretty, so we used to just have a multi-tenant environment, and became pretty clear that was not going to be good enough. Maybe it's for the compliance region, maybe it's a sovereign data compliance requirement. We want to be in a single region, or because of maybe you have some proprietary data and tools, so you want it to be single tenant and multi-region. So as some of our customers have global learners, things like desktop application streaming, you are better off if the lab is delivered from the closest data center instead of being delivered from a single one. So we have invested a lot of energy making sure that we can deliver depending on what you need, a multi-tenant and multi-region. And then there's a rich set of REST API, which is there for integration. So integration, there's a data analytics pipeline, for example, we can deliver it, and this is being used. Maybe you're managing a content in a Git repo, so a lot of our educators are using it to keep it in sync with Vocarium content, in sync with your Git repo. Or maybe if you have a custom tool, then you can use Vocarium to integrate using our REST API in your tool. So that was sort of the presentation portion, and what I will do right now, I'll just go ahead and start the demo. So the way I have set it up is that I have two tabs here. One is a teacher view and one under the student view. So I will switch back and forth between them. This is the teacher view. So let's assume that you created a Vocarium course and we enrolled you as a teacher. So as I was saying earlier on, there's a admin role, and I would not go through it, but admin role is basically has a super user control over all the assets to do with your organization. And then you create courses, and then the teacher has full administrative role over that course. So we have created a course called Vocarium Jupyter Elite, and in this particular case, I'm showing you the teacher view. So if you come here, this is what you would see. If you click the edit assignment tab, you can go ahead and create a new assignment. And let's go ahead and create a Jupyter assignment. So this part of the demo is meant for, like in our previous webinar, we were getting a request to say, hey, can we have a Vocarium 101? So it is meant for someone who has not used Vocarium. So if you are a Vocarium user, and if you want to know deeper about some of our more complex features, please go ahead and ask questions and we'll try to address that. But right now, I just want to go through a basic flow here. So you go ahead and create an assignment, and we'll just say save and continue. And now in Vocarium, an assignment is collection of what we call parts. So parts are these leaf level problems. So I'm going to go ahead and create a part. We'll call it, the name is not important if you have only one part. And then these are lab types, and that's how we deliver different labs, as I was mentioning. So for Jupyter, there are two options. You can pick either Jupyter Notebook, which is our classic UI, or Jupyter Elite, which is a relatively new, but it's not that, you can use either one. And we will go ahead and publish this. Oh, I can't publish it first. I need to save it, sorry. So I'll go ahead and save this part, and then let me go ahead and publish this assignment here. So this is actually so now this is published. Now I'm going to switch to the student view. Let me go ahead and reload the screen. And if you notice, there's an assignment called Jupyter assignment. So let me go to it. Now, if you're integrating Vocarium via LTI, then you will not see the previous page. You'll come directly here, right? So this is now a fully managed Jupyter container, Jupyter notebook that the learner can use. So in this case, for example, I can create, there are a whole bunch of kernels installed, like C, Java, Octave, Julia, Python, R. But let's go ahead and create a Python 3.7 notebook. And I can type something really trivial here to show you that it's actually working. Then I can run it. As you can see, hello world, right? So this is sort of the basic, you are giving the learner a Jupyter notebook. But often what you would want is to, of course, you would want to grade them and also maybe give them a starting point so they don't have to start from scratch. So let's go ahead and create another assignment, and I will call it Jupyter with the starter code. And this time I will create another part and switch the lab type once again to Jupyter Elite. And also I'll go to the grading section of Vocarium and then create a rubric here. And let me go ahead and save it with, I'll say there's one rubric, I want to give the score of 10. So what we have here are other sort of other sections. So for example, there are lab resources. So if you wanted to deliver, let's say, a database or with the a database with the learner, or cloud computing, or a Spark cluster, then you would you can turn the resources on. Actually, it's not showing cloud computing here because I just realized that I had not enabled cloud computing. So maybe I'll show you how you'll add cloud computing in the future. But I was wondering, David, if a Vocarium Jupyter Elite, if you can enable cloud computing for that, that appreciated. But anyways, and then there are panels. This is how you can deliver. You can deliver. You can sort of control the view. So if you notice this one, all that we are saying, there's a console. The learner is showing this is the default view. You can have a reset and you have an assignment. So, and maybe I will go ahead and add file browser here, and yeah. I think what I did was I tried to save the same part, created the same part twice. So file browser, let's go ahead and save it. And then submission. So the submission section, you can have a due date, late submission, early submission bonus. Number of submissions, an important feature that you can actually control how many times the learner can submit. This becomes especially important when we talk in the later about auto grading. Show solution, this feature basically says that you can deliver you can control some options, like after how many attempts or after due date, you can actually release the solution to the learner. And for grading, there are some options related to once again, because of auto grading, you can have a late penalty, and generate script is a little bit advanced option where you can generate we'll run a script when the learner comes in, so you can generate a unique solution for every learner, for example, for exam. Multiple versions are not used that often, but what this is saying is that you can set a version number for an assignment, and every time when a learner goes, they can start an assignment only if they have finished everything up to that version. But let's go ahead and publish this. Actually, I also wanted to, so this is now available for the student, but I want also, let's say, wanted to provide some starter code. So this is a file system where you can use it to deliver starter code and some data. So for example, in this particular case, I will just deliver, let's say, a starting notebook for the learner. So I have some notebooks here. Let's call it plot examples. I'm going to upload this notebook in the starter code directory, and I'm going to go ahead and do an update. Update is our version of deploy. So this is for an educator, this is your testing area, and then you're ready to release it, you hit update. So let's go back and make sure we have so we have published this assignment. So let's go back as a learner, and I can once again go back to my assignment view, and you notice that there's already an assignment called Jupyter starter code. So we will go ahead and hit my work here, and what you should see that this time it should be populated with a notebook here, which we started with. So this is your this is a notebook. As you can see, it has a couple of simple plot, but one important thing to note here is using NumPy and Matplotlib and scipy.stats. I'm not sure what that is, but we on our this managed application, we maintain all these packages. So there are hundreds of packages, and that we are constantly updating it, so you don't have to worry about it. You can update them too, but it's much easier if we update it and we have a process within 48 hours, we'll turn it around for you. So now this is ready, and the learner, let's go ahead and do some trivial change. For example, I'm going to change the grid from aqua to red, and I can run it again. And this is actually because of the matplot is the first time it takes a few seconds. Matplot. So as you can see, this is now the grid line is red. So after this excellent change, I'm going to go ahead and submit my assignment as a learner. And let's go back once again as a teacher. Now I can see on my dashboard all the submissions for this learner, and this was the learner here. And let's go ahead and view this. And this is my grading view. So one is nice thing once again is that I can actually see. So this is a running Jupyter notebook, but is running on the student submission. So I can go ahead and grade it a couple of ways. I can give them a score and could have multiple rubrics, but this is only one. And I can go ahead and, let's say, add a comment. And let's go back and make sure that we did publish the grades for this assignment. We did not publish it, so you have to hit publish. So now I'm going to switch back to the learner. And let's go back to what the learner would see. So as you can see, if they came here, they would see that my work, I'm seeing the grade is still not set. So I must not have hit submit grade. Let's go back and make sure you're seeing graded it is. So I'm sure I did not see the save grade here. So now I'm going to give them a 6. Let's go ahead and refresh the score. So now it's saying that the score is 6 out of 10, right? And if I go here, go back as a learner, excuse me. So I should see the code comment we've just given. And if you notice here also, there is a submissions here. So this is something which you implemented over the last year, where the learner can actually, if they have submitted multiple times, so they can go ahead and see all their submissions. And the reason why it's taking a few seconds, because converting the notebook to an HTML, so this is the learner submission, right? So they can see all their past submissions. So once again, they can see the grade, the code comment, and if there was an overall comment, which I didn't give, and their submission. So now let's go back and create another assignment, and this time we'll add auto grading to it. So if you notice the flow which I showed right now, everything, the grading and submission was done manual. So we'll create a Jupyter auto grade. Once again, we'll create a part and switch it to Jupyter Elite. And this time I'm not going to create any rubrics because I keep trying to publish here. Sorry, first I have to save a part. And then we'll go back to configure a space. If you remember, this is where you prepare your notebooks. So in this time in the work area, I'm going to upload a notebook here, factorial.ipynb, which we have prepared, which can be auto graded. And then you launch a Jupyter server. Once again, this is in the teacher area or author area. So this is the notebook which I uploaded. And if you notice here, these are there are some tags on this cell called read-only solution or auto-graded test. Essentially, the tags mean that these are NB graded tags, if you're familiar with it. But essentially, it's saying that read-only means if the learner can change this cell or not. And solution means that the learner can this is where they are supposed to edit it. For example, it says do not change this cell. So if I wanted, I could have changed it to read only. And then there are some markdown cells where you can give instructions. And here, if you're noticing, is saying begin solution template and end solution. So as a teacher, once again, this you can provide you can actually have a notebook and you can check the answers. And this will get extracted out, as I'll show a little bit later. And this particular cell is important because this is marked as an auto grader test. And essentially what this means is that the system will, when it does the auto grading, it will execute this block and check if any of the assertions trigger. So in this case, the assertion is factorial 3 answer is equal to 6. So if this assertion triggers, then the user will get 0 on this rubric test 1. Otherwise, they will get 1 point here, which is right here. And this is the message which you can deliver. There's the assertion triggers, you can deliver this message, otherwise this print message. And the begin hidden test and end hidden test is saying that you don't want the students to be able to see this test. So it will get actually removed when the notebook is presented. So let's go ahead and try to run this. And what you will notice that this will have an error here because it is expecting here this package here in this path, and it's saying it's not found. So I'm going to go back and upload this, and so this particular directory, ASN public, is a directory where you can deliver read-only content to your learners. So this is where, for example, where you can deliver data sets. And there's a difference between public and data. The subtle difference is that public data, you basically maintain only one copy. So if you have a large data set you deliver in public data, or public, if you put something in, it becomes visible only when you hit update. And ASN lib and lib, the difference is that this is the directory which is created specifically for this problem. But if you have if you want to deliver some resources which are common to all the problems in this course, then you can add once in this lib directory and it'll become visible in all the different problems. So, and we'll go ahead and upload this this module, and I have a zip file sitting here. Let me just go ahead and upload. And what the system will do is a zip file, it will automatically unzip it. So this PyTest sort of unzipped right now. So let's go back to launch. Let's launch the server again. And if I run it, so this time it should, if it installed correctly, then it should execute, and which it did correctly. So now that you're ready, assuming that you have your answers here, you have made sure everything is working correctly because there are no errors. Now you get ready to what we call release a notebook. What releasing a notebook does is now it post-processes a notebook, extracts what is not, should be visible to the learner, and prepares it to the notebook. Essentially, it will deploy the extracted notebook in the starter code directory, which I was showing earlier on. There are some options here. For example, if you have more than one notebooks, then it will ask you which notebooks do you want to release from your work area, which is the kind of the teacher scratch area where you prepare your notebook. Whether you want to extract the rubric items from notebooks or not. In this case, you will say yes. Do you want to delete unused grading items? So, and this is there because let's say if you make a mistake in the name, or if you, then do you want to delete the previous one? Or in Vocarium case, you can mix and match rubrics. So you can have a few auto-graded rubrics, few peer reviews. In that case, you don't want to delete unused. And by unused, it means unused in this notebook. Create resource link in the starter code. This is actually a very specific thing which was there because if you have some image assets in your notebook which you want to display, because of notebooks, you cannot have a / resource. So it creates a link so that you can say my image asset is in resource / ASN lib / public. Whether you want to generate the grading script or not, and whether you want to show traceback for error. So traceback error, we will turn it off because if you show the traceback, then it gives away what the test is. This particular flag is disabled because it shows up only if it is the grades are published. So let me go ahead and actually publish the grades so I can actually turn it on. Let's go ahead and publish the grades. And then we'll go back and then we'll go ahead and actually release the notebook. And this time I should be able to, I can select display auto grade test. So we'll turn this thing on, trace back, and then let's just go ahead and release it. And what this will go, post-processing is saying success. Okay, everything is done. So we are ready to go. And now we'll hit update once again. So we are deploying the notebook. Now, I'm not going to go through this option, but just to give you a sense of what these are, generate quiz. If you have a multiple choice quiz, you can actually post-process a markdown file, a build image if you're bringing your own container image, for example. Merge content means if you have multiple problems and you want to combine it. But again, these are some complex options. We'll not go in this, but please ask questions if you have. So let's go ahead, go back to this view, and we'll publish the assignment. Publishing is now, okay, so now it's published, and we will go back to the learner view. And we'll refresh the screen. So if you see the Jupyter autograde, it showed up. So now let's see with the notebook. The notebook that is being presented to the learner should not have, for example, the auto grader block, right? Auto grader tests. As you can see, it has removed that. Now let's go ahead and solve the first problem. It says assign factorial 3 to answer of, so we'll give it the answer, right answer 6, and we'll submit the assignment. Now what this is doing right now is actually sending the student notebook to our grading server. So we can, these are auto scale bank of servers, and we can scale some really large number of jobs, and these jobs can take for hours, for example. So there's a pretty robust bank system for scheduling and auto grading. So now I am a little confused that why is the test 1 is 0, because I thought we answered it correctly. The only thing I can think about, let me submit it again, that I did it before the save had happened. So I'm just running it again, just in the hope that I can improve my score here. Okay, factorial 3 answer is not defined. This is the one it's saying. Okay, let me just go ahead and run this cell. Do apologize for this. It's saying that, as you can see, the error it is giving is the factorial 3 answer is not defined. And I'm sure I'm making some really small mistake, but I don't want to hold it up or whatever. So let's just go ahead and go. We will go and try to answer the next question correctly. As you're saying, it's saying write a factorial function using recursion. And so I'm going to get the right answer from the teacher, do a copy and paste. So once again, you don't have to watch. Factorial 3, that was supposed to be the answer. I'm not sure what's going on there. But let's go ahead and copy the definition of this. And then we will go in. So the student, once again, I can run all these cells. And it's saying recursive solution is incorrect, maybe because I put maybe I put the wrong one. Okay, recursive I haven't entered it here. In fact, I put the recursion here. Okay, so let's just go ahead and submit it here and see if at least I can get one of these right. So once again, these are getting scheduled in the batch servers. Okay, so it's actually fixed the test 1 1 and test 2 is 5. So now I got answer test 1 and test 2, they're correct. And why it's still kind of puzzling why it was wrong earlier on. But test 3, I still haven't answered that. So hopefully it gives you a sense of how the auto grading works, right? So there's one last feature which I want to go ahead and sort of talk about quickly. Let's say that if you wanted to deliver instructions, then you do it through, you can add any markdown in the docs directory. Now, for Jupyter, typically you will include the instruction maybe in the notebook itself, but there are other kinds of lab where you might want to deliver the instruction to the learner. So I have actually a markdown which I'm going to upload, and I'm just going to update again. And let's go ahead and update reload the student view. So if you notice, there's the markdown. This is where you can deliver sort of instruction. And now this could be not just a Jupyter lab, but could be any other lab. And also the multiple choice questions, you can actually have multiple choice questions. And obviously I'm would not have time to go into it. So hopefully this gives you an idea. And what I will do at this point, I will just go ahead and stop sharing my screen so I can see if there are any specific questions.